What's going on, friends? Today I'm going to talk about my Canon M50 video settings. I was going to do this photography and videography, but I realized the video would probably be way too long. So today's video is going to be all about how I set up my camera to form different videos. And then the next video will be all about how I set it up for photography. So that way that I can get you as much information as possible and be as detailed as possible without taking up too much of your time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So firstly, there are two picture profiles that I primarily use when I'm creating video. And it all depends on if I'm in a setup like this where I have complete control of the environment, or if I'm creating something for a client or a special personal project where I'm going to have to do color correction. So for this video, there's virtually no color correction whatsoever going on. I might tweak a few things here and there to even it out, but for the most part, I just get my lighting set up how I want, I set my camera in, and we're good to go, because I don't want to spend, even just 20 minutes trying to do some color corrections. I don't want to do that. I just want to set it up, record, and go. And here are the settings that I use for that. So my settings are just a standard picture profile with a custom white balance set to 5600 Kelvin. The reason I set it up like that is my key light over here is actually 5600 Kelvin. So I set my light to that, and then everything else kind of colors accordingly. So again, this is just a standard picture profile, but I do modify it slightly. I have my sharpness set to 4, contrast is at 0, saturation is at 0, and color tone is also at 0. Now for me, I also use the dual pixel autofocus feature because I am only shooting in 1080p full HD versus shooting in 4K. And the reason is a couple of factors. One, the 4K on the Canon M50 is going to crop in even more, not providing me enough space in already such a small space. Number two, I lose the advantage of the dual pixel autofocus that Canon is very well known for. And because I tend to move around a lot, having this thing set up in manual focus probably isn't the best thing for me, because the starting position I'm in now may not be where I end up by the end of the video, and rather than have me going in and out of focus the entire video, I just leave on autofocus and I think it works great. Now when I am recording video, I am shooting at a double frame rate. My shutter speed is double my frame rate. So right now I'm shooting at 24 frames per second. So my shutter speed is set to 1/50th. I have an ISO 100 and my lens aperture is set to f2.0. And then I add in all my lights to compensate for everything else. The reason I'm shooting at such a wide open aperture, one, the room is really dark, so this helps me to get my ISO down so there's not as much noise and grain, but also so I can blur out the background so everything I have behind me is not so distracting to you. And that's pretty much my settings and how I set everything up when I don't want to color correct. I use that every time that I film something inside this here studio, and I also film it for my run and gun vlogs where I'm just kind of filming fun stuff, and I don't want to pay a lot of attention to color correcting or adding in all this extra fluff. For that, I will use the next set of settings. So when I do want to do more color correction, more cinematic looking stuff, I will use what I call a modified neutral picture profile. Basically, all the other settings are the same. I still shoot in 1080. I go back and forth between auto and manual focus, and then my exposure is set based on whatever I need it to do. So most of the time I'm controlling my aperture and my ISO. But my neutral picture profile settings are as follows. I do a sharpness of 2, contrast -4, saturation -2, and color tone of 1. And the reason I do this is I want to pull all the settings way down so the camera is not the one actually correcting and coloring my image, but I get to do that in post-processing. When you pull some of those settings way down, then you can add things back in as you want and create this overall nice piece. But now for creating a YouTube video like this, there's no reason for me to set up every single day and color correct every single time. But if I am creating a piece for a client, maybe like a band or a business, or if I'm even doing a personal piece that I feel really passionate about, I want to spend more time on that. So that is my settings for that as well. Now, if you do have any questions, I know there might be a few things I might have missed that you might be curious about. Be sure to leave those in the comment section below. But for the most part, that's all I use for video. Occasionally, I will tweak these settings as need be if the environment kind of forces me to do that. But overall, I stay pretty much within these two cards right here. But if you did enjoy today's video and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so, because in the next video, I'm going over my photo settings, and they are completely different. But either way, let me know in the comment section below if you own a Canon M50, what are your video settings? What do you like to use and why? Do you have a video on it? Be sure to share that with me if you'd like. But that pretty much sums up today's video, and as always, be sure to create something new today.